The price he pays for this, though, is the price of a pawn. Bishop takes h6. Now the g-pawn can't capture, as the white queen pins it to the king, and white threatens queen takes g7 checkmate. Now black has to defend against that. Only two moves do this. He can move the g-pawn, but that allows the bishop to go down and take the rook, gaining even more material. The other move is what was played in the game, queen to f6. Now, to be honest, I didn't really think here. I just automatically thought I'd push the queen away, while at the same time vacating h6, so the h-pawn could, keep pushing on. Bishop to g5. I regret this. Bishop to e3 would probably have been a better move. I didn't consider that the only real move black has here, queen e6, offers a queen exchange that I can't really find a good way of declining. I want to keep my queen for the attack, but any move would allow black to play something like f6 or f5 when the black king has some air, and things aren't quite as clear to me anymore. Luckily, the queen exchange does saddle him with an isolated double pawn, and that, in combination with the extra pawn that we just captured on h6, I think should be enough for a winning endgame. So, queen takes e6, f takes e6. Rook to c1, inviting exchanges and not allowing black to dominate the only open file on the board. Rook takes rook, rook takes rook. Rook to f5, hitting the bishop and x-raying the distant rim pawn on h5. This has all been foreseen, so bishop d8. Here I was expecting something like pawn to a4, when I think bishop c7 looks good. I think the white rook will do a better job at harassing these black pawns than the black rook will manage to accomplish over here. But he went for exchanging instead. Rook takes pawn, bishop takes pawn. Now, when this position was on the board, I noticed something that I had not considered when just envisioning the position. The white bishop on a5 is on the same rank as the black rook on h5. Now, this is pretty sad news to me, because it means black can play pawn to d4, uncovering an attack on the bishop. And when the bishop moves, or plays the pawn b4 to protect it, then pawn takes pawn on d3, pawn on e2 takes the pawn back, and black no longer has those atrocious double pawns. Actually, with the same colored bishop and rook endgame, with two isolated pawn each and a-b pawns versus b, it seems very drawish to me. I think it would be very difficult to prove an advantage for white after that. Anyway, black decides to check the king instead. Now, white needs to play the king to f1 and take the long way around here. But naturally, being so pleasantly surprised that my opponent did not play pawn to e4, I played the centralizing move king f3 instead. I know, this is just a horrific blunder. The second I did it, my heart just sank, and I knew that it was all over, basically. I think it should have been anyway. Black plays e4, opening the fifth rank, attacking the bishop, just like we talked about. The only difference is that now he does so with check, which means I have no time to move the bishop or to protect the bishop. I'm just going to lose the piece outright. Now, losing a piece in the late stage of the game, more often than not, that just leads to a completely hopeless position. A material disadvantage grows in power the fewer pieces that are left on the board, since the forces are relative to each other. Now, if you have an army of 20 versus an army of 17, that's a disadvantage, but it's not crippling. But if the numbers go down and we're talking about 6 versus 3 or 4 versus 1, then things take on a whole new meaning. I was really angry at myself for having messed up what had felt like a pretty clean game up until this point. I was also in no mood to resign. So, king takes pawn, rook takes bishop, And the truth is, I still think white is in the game here. At this moment in time, white has only 2 pawns for a minor piece. White has 5 pawns versus black's 3 pawns and a bishop. And we both have a rook. But white's king is better. It's very centralized, it's active, and also black has no immediate way of creating a passed pawn to try and push to the last rank or to make a new queen. The white pawns should be able to counter the black ones, and as annoying as it is to be playing against someone with an extra bishop, in the end game an extra bishop in itself is not necessarily enough to win. If the pawns equal each other out and we exchange the rooks, it's a dead draw. You can't mate with just a bishop. And if you don't accept the rook exchange, well, I think my rook can harass the black king long enough and hard enough for him not to make any real progress. Even if the pawns remain on the board, black will have fewer places to hide than